All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar presented to you by InfoTrust on becoming data-driven with DoubleClick. A few housekeeping items before we jump in. The webinar today is being presented to you via GoToWebinar. Hopefully there's no audio or screen share issues, but if there are, feel free to use the chat panel or questions panel in the GoToWebinar and let me know. I'll try to be monitoring that as I go through the presentation and the webinar today. It is, however, being recorded, so the slides and the recording deck will be shared with you after the webinar in a couple days or early next week. Of course, we're going to have some time at the end for questions, but still post them in the chat panel or questions panel. The webinar should take about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. We've already done this once earlier today for the Europe and Middle Eastern and Asia time zones. So hopefully we can stay on track today. So let's go ahead and get started. First, with just some introductions to who I am and who we are at InfoTrust. My name is Amin Shaki. I'm the Managing Director here at InfoTrust in Dubai, UAE. InfoTrust is a web analytics consulting and product development company. We basically help organizations with anything related to web analytics, from strategy to architecture, implementation, design, deployment, testing, validation, to also on the reporting, optimization, even data science side of things as well. We have offices across the world in the US, as well as in Dubai, where I'm dialing in from, and in Barcelona, Spain, with our European team. We're closely partnered with Google across multiple analytics products. We're certified in Google Analytics, as well as authorized resellers of the Enterprise 360 product. We also are certified in Tag Manager, Optimize, Data Studio, and even DoubleClick certified marketing partners as well across our multiple offices. We do these types of trainings all the time, webinars, client trainings, educational seminars, and a lot of our clients are multi-brand, multinational organizations, hence why we have multiple offices and do these types of events multiple times in the day. So as far as a little clarification what a DoubleClick certified marketing partner is, since this is a little bit newer certification, you as an agency or you as a business might not be aware of. These are new certifications that are provided by Google for organizations that excel within the DoubleClick platform. For us, we're specifically data and measurement certified, or we have a data and measurement badge. And this basically means that we can support organizations and their agencies with unbiased measurement strategy, implementation, and auditing of their data collection setup, including Floodlight deployment, architecture. We also help with troubleshooting, audience creation, attribution, reporting, insights, and of course, driving conversion and ROI from the DoubleClick platform. So we're closely partnered with Google as they are building the products and servicing the products. We help them actually work with clients to activate the technology and the stack together. So this is just a little bit of background about what it means to be a DoubleClick certified marketing partner and why we're uniquely qualified to provide this seminar for you today. As far as the agenda for the webinar, we have a few areas or a few sections that we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk about, in our mind at InfoTrust, very briefly, what does it mean to be data-driven? What's our approach, our take on this, and how do we work with organizations to get them thinking and acting like a data-driven organization as it impacts all of the setup and campaign optimization that can occur within an organization. Then we'll talk a little bit about DoubleClick and the data collection process. A little bit of a technical section where we go through floodlight tagging, architecture, best practices. Again, high level, but just so you know, this is how DoubleClick actually works and some of the things to keep in mind or to work through. Once we finish that section, we'll go into audience creation, attribution, reporting, and actually leveraging the data, how and what are the best ways or some of the areas that you can actually use DoubleClick, and the best practices to get started beyond just the technology, but the processes, the change management within your organization to actually fully deploy an enterprise analytics system and/or DoubleClick marketing solutions as well. All right, so to jump into the first section here, what does it mean to be data-driven? When working with organizations, we like to understand and help them develop the right questions and be asking the right questions of their data and of all their marketing initiatives. And really, we split up the types of questions or insights into the ones that can drive the most business value, but oftentimes that also means that they are potentially more complex. So most organizations we see when we first start working with them are living in the space right now today at potentially what happened and how often or how many, what are the KPIs or the top line metrics for different campaigns and things that we're running. And potentially they're at the point where they can start to identify where's the problem with our campaigns and what can we improve. But where we want to be to truly be data driven is to be asking and be able to answer the type of questions like, why is this happening? What will happen next? And how can we better predict the different activities or triggers and variables that will cause improvement in our ROI or increase our return from our marketing campaigns? So when we work with organizations, we always try to keep in mind initially and as we go throughout an engagement, how can we answer these questions, because it'll drive the most business value and return in the end. Now, of course, when we think of being data-driven or data-centric, it also means change-centric. Simply put, when we work with organizations, always try to set up an architecture, tracking, and business practices that are designed to constantly be innovating, optimizing, or driving change. A lot of times when we start working with organizations, we ask for what are your KPIs, your targets, your goals, or what do you need to track from your perspective. And we get a laundry list of hundreds and hundreds of KPIs and things that need to be tracked to really understand the consumer and what they're doing, but it doesn't actually lead to any change. So we always challenge anything that we're doing, any setup, configuration, needs to have some kind of change tied to it or ability to optimize or improve. Really, that's the definition of web analytics, is the act of assessing your online marketing in a way to optimize or constantly improve. So changing the mindset to focusing on the key areas that can be improved, setting up tracking and analytics around that, that's the first step towards becoming data-driven. With DoubleClick or with any other platform, tracking for the sake of tracking or seeing everything without actually business processes to implement really leads nowhere. Wanted to show an example of how this can be started as far as planning the things that need to be tracked in order to drive change. What we start looking at or building is groups or start to group your consumers, your customers into various funnel stages according to where they are in the customer journey that leads up to being an advocate or a repeat purchaser, a repeat buyer, or someone that's loyal to your brand or organization. So different funnel stages have different purposes, or they can be slightly different across different various businesses. But these are just a few examples that we've seen in the past, like the explore learning funnel stage, where you're just trying to build awareness and gather and acquire more consumers to understand or know your brand. Then moving them on to the consideration evaluation stage, where they actually begin to engage, review, and get interested with your brand organization, versus acting to actually purchase or convert, and then sharing that on. So what we try to do with our clients and organizations is build a very simple model where we list all the marketing tactics, activities, and try to identify what consumer stage we're trying to target for each marketing tactic, because that'll let us understand or start to build what are the KPIs or metrics or tracking we need to be able to drive or improve these marketing tactics and push consumers down through the funnel so that they become converters or advocates ultimately. This is a really oversimplified example of just starting to document the different activities or marketing tactics that can be performed and how the measurement can be tied to that, so that you can move consumers along the funnel stage. Okay, let's continue. I think might have a question. If there's any questions, feel free to post in the chat panel or in the questions panel, so then we can ask or answer there. Okay, it sounds like we have an issue with the audio breaking. So I'll try to be very conscious with my headset, but if it continues to break and if you can't hear me clearly, know that we have a recording from earlier today and this is actually being recorded as well. So I'll try to talk slower, more clearly in case there's still audio issues and maybe not move around the mic so much, but thank you for that note. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next section here, which is intro into DoubleClick and the data collection. So working with enterprises or large organizations, there's typically this need to get more from the digital technology, whether that's analytics or a marketing solutions platform. There's various aspects that are required for enterprises more than just basic or small organizations. So more customization with the reporting, more control and integration friendly. These are the type of things that we, from our experience, have seen enterprises require, particularly when it comes to being data-driven, segmentation, analysis capabilities, more collection capabilities, and sophisticated reports. These are the types of needs that are from enterprises or large organizations, and really the ones that are thinking about or already using DoubleClick. These are requirements for those types of organizations, since DoubleClick in itself is a enterprise marketing platform. Now, when talking about DoubleClick, there's a few components. Technically, the DoubleClick digital marketing solution is comprised of multiple different products. You have the DoubleClick search product, which is all around aggregating and organizing or managing your search campaigns across multiple search engines, paid particularly. You have DoubleClick Bid Manager, which is all about display and video at scale. It's programmatic bidding. It's on the display and video side separate from search. These are two separate products. You have DoubleClick Studio, which is on the creative side to build your ads, to develop those rich media or video concepts for Bid Manager, or potentially display ads for other platforms. And then you have DoubleClick Campaign Manager. And this is really the central place where you can manage all campaigns across the various channels, as well as set up the tracking for non-DoubleClick or non-search or display platforms as well. You can set up tracking pixels for email and social links, etc., all within DoubleClick Campaign Manager. And this is also where the majority of reporting in DoubleClick and insights can be gleaned, because it unifies the multiple platforms together. Wanted to show a separate build on the last slide with how these technologies work together or where they sit in the flow. So this image here is showing just from the advertiser side, which is primarily where we're focusing on for this webinar, is just how advertisers can leverage this technology and be data-driven. You can see the DoubleClick stack or digital marketing platforms here, DCM, DBM, DS. They're all sitting here to execute campaigns, send and deploy ads to your consumers, and drive ad interactions with your customers. Now it's connected, of course, to the publisher side where your ads are actually displayed or shown or sent to. Maybe even the search engines would be on this side. But primarily, we're going to be talking about this portion here and how to be more data-driven looking at these campaigns and the setup you have here. Now, of course, you also have Google Analytics and other Google reporting technologies like Google Attribution that interact or overlap with DoubleClick platforms. And we'll talk a little bit about the value of the integration, additional insights you can get with all these products together. But that kind of sits across the spectrum here that your users can be exposed to as well. But DoubleClick, it's designed to solve enterprise needs because it touches on the main channels or ways to engage with your customers across search, display, video, and unifying all of those campaigns and managing it in one single place. Now, from a data tracking, data-driven insights, attribution, everything that you need to do when you're trying to optimize your campaigns, it comes back down to the core tracking with DoubleClick. That would be the Floodlight or the Floodlight tag or pixel. It's essentially the fundamental tracking tag that's used to see conversions across all of your digital touch points. It's very similar to an analytics tag like Google Analytics, but it's designed to stitch any ad interaction. And when we say ad interaction, we mean impressions or clicks of ads off-site, tying it back to the conversions that happen on-site. So if you're an e-commerce platform, your main conversion might be a purchase, but you also might have some goals or conversions with signups, account registrations. The Floodlight tracking pixel or tag would sit on your website to capture those specific interactions on site, label them as conversions, but tie them back to the off-site ad interactions like impressions or clicks. And the way it works is whenever an ad is seen or clicked on browsers or even on apps, there's an identifier that is labeled, a DoubleClick identifier such as a cookie ID or device ID that is tied to that user. So when they come back and execute on the site or platform itself, you would have that conversion tied back to that ad interaction as well. And really it's the core of all reporting, attribution, and audience building is the Floodlight platform itself. Okay. So to talk a little bit more, what is the Floodlight tag? I mean, in the most basic form, it's an HTML code snippet or some JavaScript that is set on your website or it's deployed within the mobile app SDK to actually track some action as a conversion of some kind. These can be created directly in DCM as well as DS or DBM to track different things, and we'll show a screenshot of the basic setup just to have more visual of that, but they're designed to show the post-click conversions and track it back in your reporting. And really all data and all insights come back to the Floodlight tag deployment. And there's two different types of the DoubleClick Floodlight tag that can be used. There are counter tags and sales tags. Counter tags, this is designed to show you the micro conversions or the interactions that lead up to the ultimate conversion or macro conversion that you want your customers to do on your platforms. Things like visiting certain landing pages, product detail pages, or performing certain actions like registering for the newsletter, signing up for an event, adding to the basket. These can all be considered conversions that are leading up to that ultimate sale or ultimate registration if you're a non-e-commerce platform. So the counter tag type counts visits and interactions individually, where the sales tag not only counts the number of interactions tied to that tag, but also has some additional parameters to further define this particular conversion, such as quantity, revenue, order ID, if it's a sales purchase or sales transaction. What's useful about the sales tag is that often it can be used with negative remarketing lists, so that as users are navigating through your funnel, going from awareness to activation to ultimately a loyal customer, you can build negative remarketing lists to not display click to buy types of ads for people that might have already purchased, but rather different information about discounts or loyal membership type of content, so that you're not wasting ad spend and showing ads to the wrong funnel groups or segments of users. So all of these tags can be used together to build audiences, and we'll talk a little bit more how that can be done in a few slides. Setting up the Floodlight conversion tag can be done directly within the DoubleClick UI platform to start. Of course, it also needs to be deployed on your platforms directly via a tag management system or directly on the source code, but it starts with creating the Floodlight configuration in DoubleClick directly. What we recommend and what Google recommends is setting up the Floodlight conversion tracking pixels according to your user journey. So steps in the funnel should have a tag to signify each stage, even micro stages leading up to that ultimate last conversion or purchase or reservation that you might have with the sales tag. So it's useful to set up the types of tags in your DoubleClick campaign manager interface so that you can grab and set it up in your tag manager or on site. Now, there are some additional configurations for things like custom variables. Custom variables are really useful if you want to track even more attributes around those micro conversions or steps of the funnel. For example, and I think I'll show this in a few slides as well, if you're tracking a counter floodlight tag for every time someone makes it to a product detail page or a specific landing page, you might want to track beyond just that page was seen, what type of page it was, or what products is relevant to that page, or what is the page category, what is the, any attributes that you want to track around that particular page. Maybe the user ID, if it's a logged in potential interaction. So you can tie that view of that particular product and page back to your CRM system later on. And we have an example of that as well. So custom variables, Floodlight variables, are all around custom attributes that are tied to these micro conversions and Floodlight activities that you'll set up. Want to show an example of how this looks like in Google Tag Manager. We're quite biased in the technology that we suggest because we're very closely partnered with Google. So Google Tag Manager and using Google Analytics, DoubleClick, etc., are very straightforward. And when you're using Google Tag Manager and DoubleClick together, you can build the template tag right in GTM and apply the custom variables or the counting method, etc., directly in here. So again, some examples here could be product revenue or any other product attributes you might want to track specifically on product interactions. So for this particular client, they're tracking or firing a DoubleClick Floodlight pixel or tag anytime there's a product related action like a detail view or an add to cart or a checkout action or even a purchase. So all the attributes around those specific products can be tied back to those conversions and then used in reporting or audience building so that you can start to segment those different interactions with different product characteristics later on. We recommend using a data layer approach or architecture that is very sustainable when setting up this tracking because it can be reused across technologies as well. So once the DoubleClick Floodlight pixel is deployed, you can potentially start to have data coming into GA, but there's a couple things to note when looking at how conversions are actually attributable back to your ad interactions. So we have a quick summary slide here borrowed from Google on how this works in the most simplest form. Three things need to happen to actually see data appropriately in the DoubleClick platforms and begin to analyze and drive insights. The first is that your consumers need to actually view or click one of your ads. There needs to be an ad interaction. Specifically, an ad interaction that is trafficked or deployed through a DoubleClick platform. If you're looking at DoubleClick as your reporting software, DoubleClick Campaign Manager, only data can be seen from campaigns or traffic that is using the DoubleClick tracking process or methodology. Now, there is a way to see unattributed conversions where DoubleClick was not used, but there was a conversion or Floodlight pixel firing. But to see attributed conversions, you need to have your users view or click an ad, then actually complete a conversion, whether that's a specific page with a DoubleClick Floodlight tag or an action, a particular user action that fires this conversion. And both need to have occurred within a look-back window. For those that don't know, a look-back window is the amount of time back from the conversion that you have in your reporting to attribute or see what led up to that conversion. So for example, let's say your look-back window is 7 days and a conversion happened right now today. Only 7 days back from today would any interaction leading up to this point receive any conversion credit. Let's say it was a $100 purchase that happened today, and I had 3 or 4 interactions in my look back window, those would each get some conversion credit depending on the model you're using for attribution reports tied to this conversion. Even if there was an interaction 10 days ago that also was from the same user on the same browser as they're going through up to purchase, because it's outside the look back window, it won't be reported in your analytics platform or in your tool. Now, the look back window can be set within DoubleClick directly for every Floodlight activity. You can specify how far back you should be looking for that. But it's important to know these things so that when you are trying to assess and look at your data to run campaigns, you have to keep in mind these very specific actions need to occur and settings need to be configured. So to summarize on the data collection component with Floodlight, when you deploy Floodlight tracking and conversion pixels on your site or app, it'll not only give you more visibility in the reporting, but it will allow you and help you build consumer segments and groupings of users to target them in specific ways. So of course, you don't need to have Floodlight deployed on your website or app to run campaigns, to get impressions, to get clicks. But with Floodlight implemented and conversions tracking, you can begin to build audiences or see how they're navigating through your funnel stages. Again, if you have a Floodlight conversion pixel created for each stage of your consumer journey, you can begin to build remarketing audiences or split up your audiences according to where they are in the journey, along with performing any of these activities. So if you're trying to do an awareness campaign, these might be some of the attributes or things you're looking at to try and target or reach more consumers. If you're trying to influence consideration, these are some of the things that you might want to consider doing as well. For this short webinar, we're not going to have time to go into each and every aspect, but we're happy to talk through this. If you'd like more information, just reach out to us after the webinar or post a question in the chat panel. Okay, so let's go to the good stuff, the DoubleClick audience creation, attribution, and reporting capabilities. So the real value with using DoubleClick as a marketing solution is how much it can power your marketing with really powerful programmatic bidding options, audience creation, and access to consumers. When you're running ad campaigns and you want to build your consumer base and move them along the funnel, DoubleClick allows you that exposure via search and bid manager to really reach the right customers at the right time with the right message. So there's a vast amount of ways that you can target users in Bid Manager or some of the settings that you can set up within DoubleClick search, particularly when you're considering all the characteristics of your key customers. One note is that DoubleClick, because DoubleClick is a platform that serves ads across the internet and has cookies that are actually monitoring web behavior or web activity and navigation, the amount of data that DoubleClick has around consumers online, such as their interest or demographics or age, gender, and other places they've been online, it allows you to have enormous amount of targeting capabilities or options to really individually segment your users and build campaigns or strategies to target specifically according to the funnel stage that you might be looking to grow or pass consumers through. So it's extremely powerful, and it's even more powerful when you combine it with your first party data, which we'll talk about here in a minute so I don't jump ahead. As far as building audiences and using this really rich data, what we always recommend to be, again, even more data driven is leveraging not only the rich third-party data that DoubleClick has or demographic interest data, but also using your Floodlight activities. Again, coming back to the Floodlight tracking that you might have deployed on your site or that we recommend deploying with custom variables about the specific page or products or user information and demographics that you might have about your users as they're coming to your site. Including those in the audience creation is possible and extremely recommended. So you can see here in the audience building wizard, this is a very simple way to create audiences within Campaign Manager, which you can also do in other DoubleClick tools. But you can see you can match or set up criteria to further isolate or group different users together based on their activity or what you want to target, what type of campaigns you want to run. So again, from our perspective, the first requirement is setting up a really robust Floodlight tracking architecture with a list of activities, counter and sales tags, variables, and attributes that you want to collect. Configure it in your tag manager, deploy so that it's tracked appropriately across different pages or events that your users will be performing once they land on your platforms. And then going into DCM, DS, DBM, whatever tools you want, knowing that it auto syncs if you do it in DCM first, and building these audiences based on your targeting criteria and your funnel stages and where you want users to actually be exposed to different ad content you might have. Using Google Analytics 360, if you have that in your organization, is extremely powerful because it opens up lots of the capabilities and you can overlay even more data into your audience targeting as well. And that's what we'll talk about here next. So we have a quick question that just came in. I'll take a quick pause. The question that is being asked is there any difference between Floodlight and DoubleClick Floodlight? It's a good question because the nomenclature can be tricky sometimes. DoubleClick Floodlight and Floodlight tags, Floodlight counter tags, Floodlight sales tags, they're all synonymous. They're all conversion tags deployed via DoubleClick that can be used to actually track conversion. So the only difference is counter tags and sales tags have different parameters that can be added. Sales tags are more designed for e-commerce, so you can add in attributes like revenue, quantity, product data, where counter tags are more basic but still allow you customization with custom variables. It looks like there's a follow-up question. Is there a difference between Floodlight tags and AdWords conversion pixels? Also a good question. The main difference is that using the AdWords conversion pixel, it's kind of in the name, it's designed to tie back to AdWords campaigns specifically. However, Floodlight, DoubleClick, if you have other campaigns that are trafficked through DoubleClick, then it'll tie back to all of those other campaigns as well or other channels. The thing is though, you don't necessarily need DoubleClick search Floodlight tags and AdWords conversion pixels if you're using DoubleClick search to manage your AdWords campaigns. You can certainly have both tags if you'd like so that the reporting in AdWords and the reporting in DoubleClick search are both populated, but you don't need to have both as well if your AdWords campaigns are managed through DoubleClick search as the search aggregator platform. So good questions about the Floodlight deployment, but let's move on and I'll check the questions here in just a few slides. Okay, so where we left off on the slides was about audience creation in DoubleClick, but I want to transition a little bit to talk about DoubleClick with Google Analytics 360. When we think of being data-driven, we think combining your analytics platforms, integrating your different tools and technologies together to unlock new capabilities. So if you're using Google Analytics 360 as an enterprise platform, then DoubleClick platforms and tools automatically integrate and can pass data between, as well as other capabilities like retargeting, remarketing audiences as well. The reason this integration is so valuable between GA 360 and DoubleClick is because it really helps you target or not only see more data about your consumers, but act on it more. Again, being data-centric means being change-centric and bringing in that GA 360 first-party data coupled with your campaign data really allows you to see those different audiences that you may need to target or want to target and pass them through the funnel. So you can find customers that are not just with attributes that are tracked in DoubleClick, but also Google Analytics, things like engagement, how far they go on your site, how long they've spent, how much they've actually purchased, data that you might have only tracked in Google Analytics because it's very robust, that you want to also pass and leverage in your DoubleClick audiences. You might also want to look at user level behavior or metrics that are primarily only tracked in Google Analytics 360 because it allows stitching across multiple sessions. So things like users that might have bounced from your site more than 4 times across all of their sessions, you might want to exclude them because they might be wasted spend. Exposing them to ads, having them click on your ads only to bounce multiple times without converting, maybe they're not your key target. Maybe they're your competitors ringing up your spend. These are all things that you can use Google Analytics data coupled with DoubleClick to target or remove and optimize your marketing spend and targeting techniques. And there's other examples as well. Grouping your customer segments, being more creative with your opportunities. These are all capabilities that can come from using GA and DoubleClick together. When integrating, or when DoubleClick and Google Analytics 360 are integrated, and doing that either self-service if you have both platforms, or working with Google or your analytics partner, such as us, the audience building capabilities then allows you to select different sources, such as DoubleClick Bid Manager, where you can build your audience or segment in GA first with all the targeting criteria and pass it into your bidding platform, whether that's Bid Manager or AdWords in this case, so that you can target them better. So what we recommend whenever we're building audiences is first set up the Google Analytics Advanced segment within the reports directly with some criteria that will allow you to target your consumers according to which stage you want to build some ad content or campaigns around. See how large that segment is, because there is a minimum size to your audience, a minimum amount of cookies before you can actually build a retargeting audience, according to Google. And then once you have that segment refined, you have the logic you want, you can pass that as an audience into a source so that you can target specifically in those platforms directly. One of our colleagues went to a Google Summit last year, a Google Analytics Summit, and there was a case study from a different organization where they've set up Google Analytics 360, DoubleClick, integrated it all, and really honed in on all of their customer segments according to their ad copy and ways they want to progress users through their funnel. And they have built over 1,000 audience segments or audience groups. So within their campaigns, they have 1,000 different ways to target their customers. Now, we're not recommending building 1,000 audiences every time, but really understanding how granular can you go to really group your different users and pass them through the funnel according to the actions that they're doing or their web browsing behavior. Combining these two data sources together can be really powerful. They saw, in this case, that a tremendous increase in ROI when they started really honing down. Before they saw diminishing returns with too many audiences, it was too segmented, so they scaled back as well. Now, one other capability that we really like to talk about is the integration with offline data, if you have that. So many organizations today have their digital platforms, but also their consumers can engage with them outside of the website or the mobile app. They can call the customer service reps. They can purchase physically in a store. They can do all sorts of activities that are tracked potentially somewhere else because they're offline touch points. But it's difficult, or most organizations don't know the way to connect their offline interactions with their online engagement as well. So we like to paint just a simple picture how this can be done, highlighting the fact that DoubleClick and Google Analytics both have capabilities to import or ingest offline data, merge it or blend it with your online data to build even more targeted audience groupings or segments. So the way it works, walk through it quickly. Users can come to your site initially and their information is captured in DoubleClick or Google Analytics, along with your CRM platform if they fill out a form or make a contact via a phone number that's on your site. And in your CRM, all offline data post their online visit is captured as well, such as how many times they interact with your sales team or customer reps, or if they do any kind of purchasing or engagement offline, such as buying in store. We can take that data from CRM, import it, and merge it with DoubleClick and Google Analytics, build audiences, and really target using the powerful programmatic capabilities in DS or DBM from there. There's a lot of technical work that goes behind this, of course, but this concept and this capability is available today, and there are organizations taking advantage of this with both platforms, together or separate. We have a quick question. Let's see here. Oh, no, just a thank you, no worries. The next slide the next portion that we're going to talk about here is just the reporting capabilities within DoubleClick specifically, as well as Google Analytics when you integrate them together. Every DoubleClick product separately has their own reporting tools and insights that can be gleaned, but really DoubleClick Campaign Manager is designed to bring in that cross-platform, cross-device reporting and give you the capabilities all together. So when we recommend building reports or looking for insights and optimization or changes that can be made according to your funnel segments and where your customers are, we recommend using either DoubleClick Campaign Manager or taking the data from DCM and building it out into Data Studio or other visualization platforms. In DoubleClick, there are some automatic reports and dashboards in the insights and attribution sections, as well as capabilities to build your own reports, but they're usually exported as CSVs or tables, which again can give you insights onto performance, but also can be difficult to work with if it's always in CSV or Excel. But all of the dimensions and metrics from your campaigns can be used and also passed into Data Studio. So from our perspective, and all of our clients have gone absolutely crazy over using Data Studio. It's free, it's powerful, it gives you lots of visualization capabilities, and it automatically connects to DoubleClick Campaign Manager to pull in all of the metrics and all of the dimensions you could possibly need or use within your reporting suite as well. So lots of capabilities here. There's templates online, and you can reach out to us if you're interested in how we report on DoubleClick campaigns to answer the why and see consumers at different stages of the funnel. But the power behind DoubleClick and Data Studio is you can have full access to all of the individual attributes. Of course, one other section that we spend quite a bit of time in DoubleClick and Google Analytics is the attribution section. This shows you the multiple touch points or interactions users take that lead up to a conversion, according to your look back window for the type of activities you're looking at. So the attribution reports in DoubleClick actually look very similar and function similarly to the Google Analytics attribution reports, where the example I'm showing here are the top conversion paths. These are the visual touch point, or not visual, this is a visual report to show you each interaction that led up to that conversion. And a couple notes about this report is you can select a specific Floodlight activity or conversion that you want to assess, or look at all of them together. And you can specify the number of paths or touch points that lead up to that conversion. What's powerful about DoubleClick is that it not only shows you conversions and site visits or clicks, but also impressions, both on your video campaigns, display campaigns, search campaigns that led up to the actual conversion and at what revenue or metrics there. You can also build in conversion segments so that you can isolate or do a deep dive into specific campaigns or logic to see that kind of impact on your conversion count. For example, right now this is showing all of the channel groupings and all the touch points that led up to conversions with 2 or more touches. I could create a conversion segment that shows me only those conversions that originated from, let's say, a paid search click, but ended in an organic search click. So at least 2 sessions where the first touch point was paid search, last touch point was organic, and I can see how many conversions that is or what is the path that consumers take. Because maybe I feel like my paid search is not performing, but when I build this conversion segment or look at this report, I can see actually paid search is doing really well for building awareness or having consideration, top of the funnel. So my campaigns, my targeting, my ad content can be focused around reach and acquisition, where my other activities, on-site SEO activities, marketing within the website promotions can be all about driving that conversion for users that are returning. With Google Analytics, with DoubleClick, the attribution reports by default are single device. So we'll show you multiple touch points that led up to a conversion, but only if the same browser or device was used in each touch point. However, there is capability to leverage the cross-device attribution measurement platform within DoubleClick. And essentially how this works, even for users that aren't logged into your website, which is how Google Analytics does cross-device reporting, in DoubleClick, the Google Graph that uses all of their proprietary products that have over 1 billion users, at least 7 that have over 1 billion users logged in, Google can construct their graph to understand cross-device for different users and output that or make it available for reporting within DoubleClick itself. The reason you might want to use this versus always using single device is because it unlocks even more insights into your campaigns and potentially shows ones that are performing better because it involves a cross-device type of flow. For example, you might be using the single attribution report and notice that your display campaigns are really not performing. They're not, you're putting a lot of spend in there, they're getting a lot of ad interactions, impressions, and clicks, but they're not really tied to conversions. But when you build a cross-device conversions report within DoubleClick, you notice that display ads are actually highly more valuable because they are tied to the cross-device interactions that led up to a conversion. For example, in this example, users might see a display campaign on one device, but ultimately come back on another device and purchase. On the single device, you'll never tie those display campaigns to that conversion, but cross-device suddenly unlocks that and shows you the true value of these display campaigns. We've noticed when we work with clients to build these types of reports that some campaigns are heavily under attributed, or they show like they're undervalued because we're looking at single device when they're highly valuable looking at the cross-device model and using the Google Graph accordingly. Okay, so I need to skip a little quicker since we only have about a few more minutes. DoubleClick and Google Analytics reporting, they have different models. The takeaway from here, we like to use Google Analytics if and when possible, particularly when integrated with DoubleClick, because it shows you all campaigns, all touch points from any source of traffic. And by bringing in that DoubleClick data, you can also get impressions along that consumer journey, where DoubleClick only focuses on interactions that were trafficked through DoubleClick, as mentioned before. Now, when you bring in Google Analytics and DoubleClick data together, in GA, you can start to see things like return on ad spend, if you have that available in your bid manager campaigns, tied to conversions and on-site engagement metrics that are tracked with GA. And return on ad spend, we really like using that because it shows the true value of your campaigns. You might have some campaigns or keywords and activities that are driving a lot of clicks and sessions and a lot of ad interactions, but the spend is much higher than the return. It's not really driving conversions. So return on ad spend allows you to analyze that much deeper so that you can really invest in what drives the bottom line and find opportunities. Like I mentioned before, when you bring Google Analytics 360 and DoubleClick together with the integration, you can begin to see the display or impression interactions within all of the other touch points from any channel that's tracked in Google Analytics that leads to conversions as well. So you can see the impact that your display campaigns or video campaigns might have, even if there was no click or session immediately generated, as it amounts to the different conversions that are happening. And you can use different attribution models, including the data-driven attribution model, to assess performance of different campaigns without always looking at last click by default. Okay, so to wrap up the webinar, we just want to leave you with some best practices to get started as you're looking to deploy or enhance and be more data-driven with DoubleClick. This section isn't specifically DoubleClick related, it's more general enterprise analytics. First step comes with standards. Centralizing your platforms, maintaining consistency, ensuring that your measurement actually is designed to track and assess consumers as they're going through the funnel or your consumer journey, which tactics need to be measured how, and always looking to ask the question, why? Why is this happening, or how can we predict what else can be done? What we always recommend is documentation. By documenting everything, standardizing if you have multiple sites, multiple brands, it can allow quicker and more efficient analysis And the less time to insights, the more you can actually optimize and drive performance there. So standards are really, really key whenever working with any enterprise deployment. And when we say building standards, it's not only in the deployment or configuration, but really the documentation. Our experience working with organizations, if it's not documented, it deteriorates. One brand, one part of the site, one group of Floodlight tags might be tracking one thing where others are tracking something else, and it becomes extremely difficult to build audiences that are cohesive or negative remarketing lists or what have you to really see your consumers along the journey. So we always recommend just documenting all of the platforms that you have, the property IDs, network IDs, Floodlight configuration IDs, etc., especially if you're a multi-brand organization, because it allows you to really organize your campaigns and see it holistically across all your channels. Now, from deployment and getting started, building a knowledge base is key, or at least a setup of configuration. So with all of our clients, when we work with them, we document and build this on almost like internal portal or wiki, if you will, of information about the configuration, but also how to leverage the Floodlight tagging and the audiences and the custom variables, etc., that you might build. This is an example of Google Analytics knowledge base, just for reference, but even with this, you can have all trainings and links to webinars or informational hubs included as well to really get people to start using and leveraging the setup. If you already have DoubleClick implemented or you have some Floodlight deployment, it's never a bad idea to do a data or tag pixel audit and do this regularly. So what we do for all of our clients, again, just from our perspective, we always have a monthly tag audit or automated check on the deployment of Floodlight pixels. If they're not completely accurate, fully deployed across all of the different touch points and interactions we want to track on site, it could lead to incorrect or even harmful analysis and audience building, where you might be under attributing some conversions to some campaigns because the deployment's incomplete, or over attributing to some campaigns because there's inflation. You're double tracking certain pages or interactions that some campaigns are being driven to. So really having clean setup and deployment of your tags and pixels are key. And we have our technology tag inspector that can help do this global auditing across your entire site or multiple sites, where our scanner technology will crawl through the site, see all the pages and pixels and variables that are tracked so that you can confirm it is proper deployment. It simplifies the validation, it's automated cross-check, and it allows you to really quickly see your tagging and if it's performing as you expect it. Ultimately, the goal is so that you reduce data gaps. So taginspector.com, there's a free version of it. You can check it out, a little shameless plug, taginspector.com. You can use that to scan your site for all tags, pixels, and deployment, including DoubleClick, and make sure it's actually set up in the way that you need it to be. So to summarize, before I show just a few case studies and close the webinar, our approach when tackling or setting up DoubleClick and your enterprise analytics is start with the architecture, build and audit, review the setup, and configure all the Floodlight tagging for every touch point and stage your consumers progress through after you define your metrics and understand exactly what you should be measuring. Ongoing data monitoring and checking as well as training insights is key so that whatever you set up or implement initially doesn't deteriorate and isn't ignored but actually used by your business and your different departments and teams globally. So to send you off with some case studies of how this works, I wanted to show a Google case study we had with one of our clients where we actually integrated their offline marketing conversion data, which are auctions that actually complete in person, back to their online marketing activities, their campaigns that they're running through DoubleClick, and tying that all together so that we can see which DoubleClick campaigns and ad interactions were driving the most offline conversions, and focusing investment on those versus ones that are only bringing in volume but no conversions. Pretty simple change, and now placing ads and knowing where to invest has become super simple for this client, and the results are shown here. Dramatic increases in conversions and bidding because we were able to really know what are the interests offline for the users so that we can target online better. And the last example here is just with a CPG client where we drove high increase in number of account registrations by simply standardizing the data architecture, implementing the funnel stage-based Floodlight conversions, and seeing all the micro conversions that lead up to a new account registration, and targeting those customers with specific relevant ads along the way, so that ultimately when they come and are ready to register, they've already been passed through the funnel all the way to the final stage. And you can see here after implementation and cleanup and deployment of the technologies, we were able to dramatically improve their conversions and bottom line. So I'm going to hang around for a few minutes as we wrap up the webinar in case there's any follow-up questions. But of course, if you want more help with your DoubleClick data and measurement practice, or as you're setting up your campaigns, feel free to reach out. You can check us on our website or email me directly. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining. Hope this was helpful, and we'll see you on the next event. So I'll just hang around for maybe 2 more minutes. I'm monitoring the chat panel and the questions panel now if there's any questions. Okay, we have a question that just came in. How does the cross-device, I think, measurement work is the question. So I can't give too much details because we don't know it honestly on the Google graph, but what I can tell you, and I'll skip back to the slide, Google has several products that users are logging into or that can be authenticated across their multiple platforms. Most of these, at least the ones shown on the screen, are over 1 billion users each. And Google takes this data of users who are logging in across these multiple devices to build their own graph so that they can identify if it is the same user across multiple devices and attribute conversions accordingly. Only a very few select organizations in the world, pretty much Google and Facebook, can do this because users are logging into multiple platforms or multiple devices. Google just happens to have several products that users are being authenticated on or logged in. So they have an algorithm to connect all these touch points and interactions together and build that cross-device measurement platform according to their graph. And it's deterministic because they only set a conversion to a cross-device user if they're 95% or higher confident, or they have 95% or higher confidence that that user really did convert based on their activity previously across their multiple devices. Yes, question if we are recording and sharing the slides. Yes, that'll be sent out in a few days or early next week by our marketing team. So no worries, we recorded this in the previous session and the slides will be passed as well. Great, well, it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So thanks so much everyone for joining. If you do have follow-ups, feel free to email me directly. But again, thank you for your time. Hopefully this was helpful and we'll see you on the next event. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.